This video was brought to you by Embedded System Solution, a company composed of like-minded electrical engineers, computer engineers, and computer scientists, and whose main goal is assisting our engineering customers, non-engineering customers, and technician level customers with their electrical and computer engineering level and technician level needs. Our customers range everywhere from engineering students to university professors, technicians to engineers, junior engineers to senior engineers. Please feel free to visit us at www.embeddedsystemsolution.com. Again, www.embeddedsystemsolution.com, or better yet, email us at support@embeddedsystemsolution.com. And like always, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like. Okay, so the third reason, now we're going to go over the third reason. Again, this is the tenant phase of why you should learn Git, or what is the importance of Git. It's the multiple collaborators. So this is a more in-depth view. So let me see. Let's get that one out of the way. Okay, so let's get all of these out of the way. So multiple collaborators. Again, so you have. Let's just remove the working directory only because we only want to focus on the Git repository. That's the whole concept of this, right? We don't. Even though it's understood, right, that we have a working directory and the Git repository, the local Git repository is inside of the working directory. So let's get rid of these, only to simplify things, right? And so, as we know, the computer communicates with the Git repository. So that's just the whole concept of this is just to show the multiple computers, and you have multiple collaborators, and on the Git server, you have a desktop PC. But again, so everybody's pushing towards the Git server, at least they should be, right? And so that's the whole concept of multiple collaborators. Now, this was already mentioned, but it's worth retouching up on it. Multiple collaborators might be weird, especially if you're coming out of the university or you're new to application development, because at least, as I mentioned before, when I got out of the university, I was used to me creating the application by myself. And so I always thought, exiting university, I thought that an app was developed by one person, and generally there is one leader, but mostly it's a collaboration of several people, several engineers, 3-4 engineers, and everybody specializes in their particular field. You might have the encryption engineer that handles all the payment information, and he's the one that develops that from the application. But let's use that game as an example. I'm sorry. So a game as an example. So you have the encryption, the engineer that has expertise in encryption, because let's suppose in the game you want to charge. Hey, you need to make sure that that information is saved, that information is kept hidden, it's kept secret, it's kept secure. Then you have let's suppose you have a webcam in terms of the game. Then you have the webcam. Oh, you have the compression, the decompression, the codecs, what they call a codecs, encoder, decoder. You have MP4. Well, not really MP4 for streaming, but there's that person that has that expertise, that engineer that has that expertise, and the engineer that actually creates the game, the one that uses GPUs, the GPU hardware to create the game, especially if it's 3D graphics. So multiple people collaborate on a single project. Now, but the thing is, sometimes people collaborate. Whenever they're collaborating, they're editing the same file. As you can imagine, that's a nightmare if you do it by yourself. But in Git actually has bells and whistles that handles that. So you as a developer, you don't have to handle that. So even if all the developers, hopefully not, they're working on the same file, Git kind of gives you like a red flag and telling you, hey, such developers also mess with the file, edit it. You have to pull, and then you can edit the file. So it just keeps track. It just helps if you have multiple collaborators, and just the concept of collaborating and editing the files in the same files. And so anyways, just thought I mentioned that. Again, the network admin typically is not going to use a desktop. He's actually going to use a server computer, a server rack, or rack server, So just be mindful of that. So anyways, you're going to use a desktop PC. Now, this is something that's tangential in terms of Git. Multiple collaborators. There's another program called, I forgot the name, CVS. I keep forgetting that. I'm not going to Google it, but it's not CVS. It's VSC or something like that. That's the one that came before Git. So it's also for version control, so it's a 3-letter word. So anyways, so that one, so let's look at Git. Let's continue looking at Git. So as you can tell, there's the copy of it, but notice that Git is somewhat unique in that every single computer has a complete copy of the Git repository, and that's a good or bad thing. It's generally a good thing nowadays. Um, the good thing is that the computers only communicate. That would represents the arrow right here. The arrow right here represents that this computer communicates with the Git repository, which is it's in the computer, so it's local, and that just saves time. And again, this does not make sense unless you. Let me Google it. I'm sorry, I'm gonna pause this. Let me Google the name of that thing. Let me see if I have it in my notes. No, I do not. Okay, sorry, I gotta do this again. I forgot to click record. So anyway, so I googled it as SVN, so I had forgotten it. So in order, this is something tangential, right? Of the three reasons why to learn Git. This is something tangential in terms of multiple collaborators, which is that you have multiple copies of the repository. Again, I forgot if I'm repeating this, I'm sorry. But you have multiple copies of the repository, and that could be a good thing and a bad thing, right? But generally, it's a good thing. Now, enable for you to truly understand this, let's go back to what existed before Git, which was SVN, right? SVN, you had the server had all the repository, and that's generally a good or a bad thing. It's more of a bad thing actually, because as a network admin, it's cool because it's one single point that you have to focus on, one single computer that you have to keep a backup of. But it also presents a problem as that it's a single point of failure. So if that computer happens to break, you're in the weeds. You're back to square one. You have a problem, and on top of that, since every single computer is doing a push to that repository, if that computer happens to have no internet, like let's suppose you're in an airplane, although airplanes now have Wi-Fi, but let's suppose you're in the middle of the ocean, something like that, and you still want to work on your project, you really can't. It just makes it more difficult because whenever you want to do a push, you can't. There's nowhere to push unless you have network access, unless you have access to this server, and so that kind of caused the problem, so the push. And if you have slow internet, then the push would take forever, So it's just presented a whole bunch of problems because the push had to go through the network, every single push. So Git kind of went around this because, again, single point of failure, and at the same time, you want to work whenever you're not in the network, you're not inside of the network. Like let's suppose you're at a work setting, you take your computer out, or you have no internet. So SVN just doesn't provide that. So with Git, the nice thing about Git is you want to continue working, you do a push or not a push or a pull, but you do a commit to the local repository. You can still move on even if you don't have internet. You still, it's just the last time that you made a copy of the Git server, but typically that's every day or every hour. I don't know how much you deviate. So obviously, the longer you're not connected to the network, the more you're going to deviate, but still the nice thing is you can progress, you can move on, you can work even if you're not in the network, even if you're not close to the Git server, even if you don't have internet, you can still do it. But the problem again is you have a complete copy of the project. But then again, it's a good thing because let's suppose the server computer breaks down, then any of these computers can actually push the repository to the server, and you're back, what's the word I'm looking for, you're hit the ground running, there's no downtime. So any one of these guys can push it. So that's kind of the cool thing, that anybody can push it back to the Git server, and you're back going. You're back moving. You're back progressing. There's a word I'm looking for, but anyways, and so yeah. So now let's get rid of these. Okay. Okay. So anyways. So yeah, so that's the multiple collaborators. So not only can multiple people collaborate, again, something tangential is that everybody has a copy of the repository, and everybody collaborates on one single project. Again, we covered that before. But anyways, thank you.